Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thrive Live. And we're super happy to be here today on Wednesday, March 8th and it just worked out so perfectly that we do our broadcasts on Wednesdays, and it happened to be Global Women's Day today on Wednesday, March 8th, and we're super excited about that. And we are celebrating our first annual award that we're doing for Global Women's Day, and we're giving our award to Barbie Brewer, somebody that we have known for some time. So we're super happy that she's on our show. And Barbie, can I talk a little bit about you before I have you and introduce you? Can I do that for a second? Are you okay with that?
Sure, just don't embarrass me too much.
Oh, okay. Well, there's nothing here that's embarrassing. It's like it's all so amazing. So Barbie has been in IT and HR for over 25 years. She's been guiding Fortune 500 companies like Netflix, IBM, Cisco, Applied Materials, GitLab, and ClickUp. She was the VP of talent for Netflix between 2011 and 2017. She is a mother of two. She is a inspirational cancer survivor. She has written a new book called Lead and Let Live, which she'll talk about that. And we're super excited to have you. So welcome, Barbie.
Yeah, welcome.
Great to be here. Great to be here. And I'm happy it's on a Wednesday too, because it's late drop off for my daughter to go to middle school, so I don't have to be taking her to school right now.
Isn't that what it's all about? Dropping off the kids. I
Yep.
agree with
Yep.
that. That is like critical. Like that like makes your day. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts around being a woman and a leader in HR and IT and what that's like, and maybe how things have changed from when you first started to where you're at now, and maybe where things still need to change. So we'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I wish I could say a lot of things have changed. I think that we're using, sometimes different words to describe the same efforts we're going through. But I feel like the same efforts are still taking place and we still haven't seen what we need to see. Now, I will acknowledge that as a woman in business, I have gotten a lot of opportunity and I've gotten a lot of support from women and men in business as well, but I think there's still work we have to do and there's still strides we need to take. The news coming out today about, women still getting 82 cents on the dollar for men doing work, things like that. I think we need to make sure, especially as a female leader, that may not be experiencing that myself right now. I need to recall that not everybody is a leader, and there are women starting out in their careers still, and we need to make sure we're looking back and looking forward at the same time and
Yeah, not
making sure that we're bringing people along with us.
Yeah, that's right. Not everybody wants to be a leader. Some people just want to work in a particular function, and that's like actually increased since the pandemic, where people don't necessarily want to be a director or a manager or a VP.
Mhm.
They want to be in a particular job and they want to do that job well, be well paid for it, and then have work life balance. And so that's super important now,
It is,
more
and I
so
think
than
those
it's
are
ever have
smart
been.
people. Yeah, I think those are smart people. I've always cautioned anyone who comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to be a manager. I want to be a director. What does it take for me to do this?" I really ask them to really think through. Are you sure you want to? What really drives you to get up in the morning? What type of work really motivates you? What type of work do you think about doing as your alarm clock goes off and it makes you stay in bed a little longer? Those are great questions to ask yourself and be aware of and be conscious of, and you should help that guide your career and what you want to do. I still joke that I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be happy.
Yep.
I want my kids to have a great life, but I want them to have to work for it. Uh,
Yeah.
and and so I think, but on Women's Day, I think it's really important to recognize that companies often don't realize that as we have fought as women for equality in the workplace, and I'm grateful to the wonderful husband I have and how much help I get from him, but we haven't necessarily gotten equality at home, many women. And so if today was school drop off, it'd be no problem. My husband would do it. I like doing it. That's why I do it. But he would do it. It wouldn't be a problem. That's not true for every woman. There are absolutely women that need to and should be able to still be good moms, and however they define that, and we can all define it differently, but however they define it and what the needs of the family are, they still need to be there for that. And so companies building in the flexibility that you're seeing employees demand now, and it's not just women demanding it. I think that true equality is when men are demanding it just as much, right?
Right. Right.
And but that flexibility in the workplace, me, Jason, and Ray, I've always or been a huge advocate of remote work long before COVID and pandemics. And one of the reasons for that is equality, and it is
Hmm.
diversity, and it is having a level playing field. Hybrid work is less level. There's still going to be location bias, and there's
Hmm.
still going to be the bias towards the person you see every day versus the person you see once a week on Zoom. And so, the hybrid workforces will need to work a lot harder on ensuring quality and removing those biases, a lot harder than a fully remote organization may need to do that has embraced asynchronous collaboration, has embraced level playing field. That really helps, I think, women and many diverse groups of people around the world, not just the country.
Right. Right. So, Barbie, maybe you can talk a little bit about your new book and kind of what was the inspiration behind it, and what are some of the messages that you want to leave from that book?
Yeah, so honestly, I always dreamed of writing a book, but I'm an avid reader, but I'll confess I read mostly fiction. So
Hmm.
I always dreamed of writing a book, but it was always a fiction book that I
Hmm.
really dreamed of writing. It
Yeah.
was never what I wrote. And so
Uh-huh.
when I had my medical diagnosis, and I'm actually a little afraid to I avoid, Jason, calling it cancer. It was a sarcoma, but it wasn't the aggressive type of cancer that many women with breast cancer and things have to deal with. It was a sarcoma, which means it's soft tissue, so it doesn't metastasize readily. So I was blessed with that. But my treatment, I just like to acknowledge that because the treatment plan that the first hospital I went to wanted to put me under was aggressive and didn't make me feel like I would be there for my kid's future. So it still was a scary diagnosis, and it was still a scary treatment plan. So I started writing letters to my kids for the different phases of their life. So first boyfriend, girlfriend, graduated from high school, get into college, graduate from college, all the different phases of their life that I didn't think I would be there for. And whilst writing that, I really realized that this isn't mommy loves you letters, right? This is this is much more of guidance of how to be a good person and guidance of how to succeed, and knowing that if I wasn't going to be around, they had to be resilient. They had to have grit. They had to, keep going. So it really ended up it was letters to my kids, but it really ended up being lessons in leadership and lessons in life. And so when I decided to then write a book, I didn't it's not a book of my letters to my kids. Don't worry, you're not going to be reading Barbie's letters to her kids. But it really spun off into, okay, I'll write a book about leadership and growth and incorporating life with it. So while I used to be like everybody else and talk about work-life balance, I don't do that anymore. I really don't think there's such a thing as work-life balance. It's the same thing. Work is part of life. It's not a separate thing for life. You don't have life and then work.
Hmm.
It's your work
Yeah.
has
Exactly.
It's all one.
yeah,
It's all one. Yeah.
yeah, your work has to integrate with your life. And so and that's why when I was talking titles and I got all these great marketing minds together thinking about titles of the book, I really rejected all that and I went with just lead and let live. because really it's about leading your companies, leading your life, um, but still living your life and letting your employees still live their life. So that's really what it gets down to.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And one of the words that you used is like one of my favorite words is resiliency. And I just don't think we talk about it enough. And you have to be so resilient in this world because you get knocked down so many times in big ways and small ways. And if
Hmm.
you don't, it's really hard to continue to move forward. Sometimes I say that, I just got to where I was because I was too stupid to like realize I probably shouldn't be moving forward and, probably should be, watching TV, playing PlayStation somewhere. But, I just kept doing what I thought I should be doing. And, probably, for not knowing any better, I got to where I'm at. But yeah, you have to be resilient. You have to get up, and I think that's so important. And I still love the fact that you talk about resiliency. Now, I always like to talk about things that actually the things that happen to people. And so I'm curious: have you ever been in a situation where you were because you were a woman, you got treated just basically unfairly, like you were absolutely treated in a way that you shouldn't have been?
Yes.
And how did that make you feel? How did that make you? Okay, obviously you don't have to disclose the names of the guilty, but how did that make you feel? Like, what did you think as you were going through that time in your life?
I'll add a little context. I was invited to an offsite, and I was very excited to be invited to this offsite because I was early in my career, and I didn't feel like I met the bar for being invited. So I was thrilled to be invited. And when I arrived at the location, I got there and there was no one else there. It was an executive at the company and me, and some drug paraphernalia on the table, and obviously I felt very uncomfortable. My first instinct was to feel uncomfortable, and I'll be really raw and honest as a woman here. And I don't know. I hope I do better today, but when I was in my 20s, I didn't, and I think that's okay. But when I'm uncomfortable, I laugh and I
Mhm.
giggle and I don't get angry. Um, I don't admit that I'm uncomfortable. I just kind of laugh it off in the moment. And so that's kind of what I did. I just laughed it off and walked out, but I didn't assert rights by any means there. And then I felt guilty. I felt, what did I do to make this person think this was okay? What did I and then flash forward 15 years and I feel guilty for not reporting it and for not getting, making the guy accountable for what he had done. So I think as women, as we go through our careers, we feel responsible for the way we've been treated. In some way, we're blaming ourselves and figuring out what we did wrong. And then as we progress, we're feeling regret for not having done more to prevent women following after us to have to deal with the same things. So now, as I'm more mature in my career, I definitely advocate for women more and I definitely stand up more. But it's sometimes a lot easier to do that for other people than it is to do it for yourself.
Oh,
Mhm.
totally. And
Yeah.
the situation that you depict, it happens, or in traditionally in the past, it happened a lot. I mean,
Hmm.
when I was an HR director or manager, I mean, I got calls from women on my cell phone who had been in similar situations, and they called me directly and say, "Hey, I went to go do something with my boss, and now somehow I'm at his house, and this was gone this way. I don't even know how I happened to be here. What would you do to get me out of this?" And there were like a lot of times I actually helped get people out of those, or women out of those situations. So unfortunately, it happened a lot, and it's horrible. And the good thing with things like Me Too and other things that hopefully we're getting through the knothole of those situations, not happening anymore. I'm sure they still are, but hopefully there's less and less of them over time. And I totally understand what you've gone through.
Yeah, and I think that women need to share their stories more broadly with men because I think a lot of men don't realize it's still happening and they don't realize the power negative power that that is experienced through that for women. So I think that sharing the stories is uncomfortable, but I think it's important. And I've got a lot of those stories. That might be one of the more
Hmm.
extreme ones. And I keep thinking back, wow, if I have to deal with this as an HR person, which is like the group that you don't mess with, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally.
Right.
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
I have to deal with this as an HR person, what are my software engineers dealing with? What are my
Hmm.
marketing people dealing with? What are my women in sales dealing with? I probably have much less risk of having to have these types of things happen given the function I'm in than a lot of women out there in the workforce. So I do think that it still is happening. And if I look back, I would have changed my reaction and I would have said, "What the heck are you doing, a-hole? Like,
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
isn't appropriate, and I'm going to report you." Like that, that would have, I now if I felt safe enough to do that, I still sometimes
Yeah.
just removing yourself from the situation is a safer thing to do. But if it had been a safe
Yeah.
situation to do that, but yeah, I think that it is one of I have a daughter now. I have a son,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I want to teach him to be a good man. But I have a daughter too. And to think that I had an opportunity to stop something and call someone on point that they can't get away with this. And I failed to do that. And I still that still keeps me up some nights
Hmm.
of not protecting my daughter and my daughter's future. And it's hard. And then that frustrates me too. Why am I bet this guy's not having any guilt. I bet this guy forgot about the occurrence altogether.
Yeah,
And
I
exactly.
here
know.
I am
So
letting it
true.
still bother me. I
Yeah,
Yeah.
mean,
and he's
it's
like,
Yeah.
simple.
and he's
Years and
living.
years
He's
later. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Exactly.
living rent free in your
Yeah.
brain. You're like, God, I gotta kick this guy
Uh,
out. This is a pain.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
yeah.
if you saw the show recently. Special Forces, America's Toughest Test. I don't know if you saw that, but it's
Mm-mm.
interesting because the two top finishers were both female,
Oh
and they
wow.
beat out all of the athletes. They beat out the NBA athletes. They beat out the NFL athletes. And one of the women that won at the end, she's a former Miss Alabama, and nobody would have pegged her to win. And she does the thing that you talk about. Like when she's nervous, she laughs. And so she would be like in these really intense situations in the beginning of the show with the Navy SEAL instructors or the Delta Force instructors, and she'd start to laugh. And they'd be like, "Why are you laughing?" And so it really bothered them until she expressed, like, "This is how I deal with stress. I laugh." And so once they sort of understood that, they realized how they needed to work with her and how to receive her. And so it's unfortunate that we attribute certain behaviors to someone being happy and not necessarily understanding what coping mechanisms are. So it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean that just because I'm engaging with you in a certain way means that I'm happy with your behavior. So that's something
Yeah.
we've got to remember.
I like
Yeah.
when I go to companies, I often recommend that the leaders write a working with me doc that just explains how that leader best works with people. And it acknowledges what's have my good leadership qualities, but it also acknowledges my bad leadership qualities, right? And so it's that kind of information that I would put in that doc is if I'm giggling and laughing, it doesn't mean I think you're funny.
Yeah, probably
Hmm.
means I think
Could,
you're an
Right. Yeah.
idiot.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could,
Yeah.
yeah, it could mean that I'm nervous and uncomfortable,
Yeah,
and be aware of that. And I find that those helping people understand, and well, in order to write that doc well, you have to have good self awareness too.
Hmm.
But I think it helps people understand you better. You don't have to make it so everyone has to decipher you. You can just you can just let them know.
yeah, just put it
It's
Yeah.
out there.
okay.
Be honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like this is how
Much
I
easier. Yeah.
roll.
yeah.
Yeah. It's much easier that way. Uh,
Mhm.
Also, maybe Barbie, you can tell the folks maybe what are some of the things that you've learned through your career that have really helped you, that you would recommend others do to really have good positive careers.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to think about as you're working for a company, if it was meant to be fun, only, and if it was meant to serve you as an employee only, you wouldn't get paid for it.
That's what I always say. Yeah, it'd be called
Uh,
fun, not work. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's important that if a company hires you and a manager hires you, and this applies to me being at the C level and it applies when I wasn't, right? You need to be thinking about, is what I'm doing good for the company? Does it make my manager's life easier? Does it make the company better? Even if it doesn't, even if it's not the thing you want to do most.
Hmm.
You've got to constantly not be thinking about what's in it for me, but what's in it for the company. And if you can do that, you're going to see your career grow faster than
Hmm.
if you're thinking about what's in it for me. And that's part of the biggest piece of advice I have. Now, obviously, when you read the book, we talk about grit and resiliency, we talk about self-awareness, we talk about being able to give and receive feedback well. Those are all things that are super important as well. But at the end of the day, you're part of a organism that is meant to succeed and thrive, and you are one piece of that you are one cell in that body that's operating.
Hmm.
You don't want to be the cancer cell. You
Right.
want to be the cell that helps it be healthier.
Hmm.
And so I think that you've got to constantly focus on that. And if you're part of an organization that you don't want their success because you don't believe in what they're doing, you don't want to be part of that organization. You need to find one that you can have pride in what the product is or who the people are. But so that I think is the biggest piece of advice I have is, you know, be thinking bigger than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about that all the
Great.
time. We don't say it as eloquently as you do. That was really beautifully said. Our motto is be easy to work with. Like, just don't be difficult to work with. Like, if you got something that you need to stick up for, okay, stick up for it, but make sure it's a fight that you want to take on. But at the end of the day, like you said, be somebody to make your manager's job easy. If you're always complaining and always making a big deal and you're always difficult to manage, it's not going to be good for your long term success and your long term career. So how you
Yeah.
said it was very eloquent,
And
and
if
Yeah,
you if
we
that's
you're
great.
gonna
yeah,
fight, yeah, if you're gonna fight for something, fight for what's best for the business, not what's best for you.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
absolutely.
I yeah, I did a little blip at FedEx in my career, early in my career, and probably the award that I was like most proud of ever getting in my career, maybe because I was young and it was my first award too. They had an easy to do business with award.
I
And you got
love
a
it.
plaque for your desk, and it was an easy to do business award. And it was like, I'm easy to do business with, yay!
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. See, we love that. That's
Yeah, that's
awesome.
great. That is great. All
All right,
right.
I got a question for you now. And we're every day, whether it's on our podcasts or whether it's on our LinkedIn live show or whether it's through emails or talking to our clients, we're talking about things like quiet quitting, quiet hiring, bare minimum Monday. Sort of you name it. There's some new workplace, phenomenon happening. And what do you think? And you maybe you don't have an answer for this, and so I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think about all these different workplace phenomenons? We're naming all these things, and all these things are happening. Where is all this stemming from? It was never like this before. Now, obviously, the pandemic and everything else has changed things radically. But what's your perception on all of this?
My perception on all of it is really that we don't need to have these different fads and things going on. We need to inherently have a workforce that, like I've said before, lets people live their lives. If you're going to say we have every other Friday off or one Friday a month off, maybe that's great for 90% of the organization, but maybe for me, a Wednesday would be more useful. If you want to say that we're going to do a gym membership for everybody, maybe that's great, but I'd rather get a massage. It's so you've got to think about these programs that you're putting into place, and is more autonomy and freedom of choice a better avenue than these blanket statements. Now, granted, if you're in a very meeting culture, then having a designated day or designated things is good because well, if I'm gone that day, I'm not going to miss any meetings. So that's where I also get excited about asynchronous collaboration and things too, and minimal meetings. But I think that it's companies trying to adjust to the upcoming workforce and its employees saying, I'm done giving my everything and all to the company. I've got other people in my life that need a little bit from me too.
Yeah.
And companies trying to adjust to that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, like somebody that we both know used to say to me all the time, like, I have a performance review at home too. And I have to be able to pass my performance review at work and I have to be able to pass it at home. And
Mhm.
right now, that person used to say to me, I'm not passing it at home. So I need to do a better job. And we totally appreciate that. Well, we're sending you an award. And so the award is presented to Barbie Brewer, Inspirational Leader. So you're our inspirational leader on Global Women's Day. And so this is what we put on the crystal that it'll be coming to your house. Hopefully you can put it behind your desk and you can get another award beside being easy to do business with that you can sit on your
Right.
desk. So we so appreciate you being on our show, and you are our first recipient, and you will go down on the pantheon of winners that we will create going forward. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
guys and keep up the great work you're doing.
All right, now wait a minute. Now
you.
tell everybody how we can order your book. What's the best way to get your book?
Oh, well, you can go to barbiejane.com. That's what was determined would have the best SEO for me, I guess. So if you go to barbiejane.com, you will see Lead and Let Live, and you'll be able to click on that tab and buy it. The official launch is actually in June, and so that's when it'll get on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and things. But right now, you can buy it on that website, and it'll come directly from the publisher.
Excellent. Well, we'd like to help sell as many books as possible.
Yep.
And we wish you success in everything that you're continuing to do. So thank you for everything. You're awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Talk later. All right. Bye.
All right. Happy
Bye-bye.
Women's Day.
All right. Bye.
Happy Women's Day.
Bye.